This is a more detailed guide to how you enter information into the trial balance. There are 2 columns, or if your charity is preparing accounts with endowment funds, there will be 3 columns that reflect the current year's transactions. There is a column that reflects the prior period transactions, and there's a blue cell into which you can put cross-reference information or schedule information. All credits are entered with a minus and will appear as red in the cells. So income will usually be a credit and will therefore normally be entered with a minus figure. There is guidance for every entry in this trial balance relating to the nature of information that's required, how you account for it in the SORP, and so on. There's detailed guidance in the help files about all these headings. Many of the headings are fixed, can't change them. But some of them are capable of being tailored to the particular circumstances of your charity. In this heading, donations and legacies, there isn't a great deal of flexibility. In other areas, there is quite a deal of flexibility. In this area, primary purpose trading, there can be a vast number of descriptions of the activities undertaken by a charity. All this can be varied to your heart's content. Again, there is guidance in the support files as to what relates to these particular elements of the trial balance. You've got charitable income from funders. That would be contractual payments from public bodies, which are distinguished from donations. Contractual payments from non-public bodies, performance-related grants. These are not donations. This is charitable income from funders according to the SORP. And you have the ability there to alter headings or add additional headings. You will see that the trial balance is compartmentalized, and so your underlying working papers from which you are preparing the accounts should also be classified by these kind of different headings. Income from other non-charitable trading activities. These are things that can give rise to taxation on charities and in fact can cause the loss of charitable exemptions. So it's very important to get these categories right. And again, you can change the headings in the blue boxes. Investment income, various headings there. Some are compulsory, some are flexible, and you can change them. Other income, these are things that don't fall into any other category, and again there are spare headings there. Again, there's guidance in the help files. If you have a revaluation, you've got to put the details in there. If there are losses on investment assets when you've sold them, then you enter the details in there. This is realized gains. That's when you've actually gained or lost money having sold an investment. The next section is unrealized gains, where you've made a gain on revaluing the asset at the end of the year. So you see it's split over the various categories of transaction, including the write-downs that are required under the SORP. You would enter the information there. Remember, you put gains in as minus, and you put losses in as plus. You might have actuarial gains on a defined pension scheme. They have to be disclosed. Gains are in as positive, as negative, and losses are in as positive. Extraordinary items. See the help on extraordinary items there. Cost of fundamental reorganisation. Then you come on to routine expenditure. Expenditure goes in as a debit, so it appears black, whereas income is negative and appears red. You've got all these headings. Costs of raising funds in this first category. Expenditure on charitable activities in this category. Quite a lot in that category. Governance costs. Now it's important to get this right. you've got to only put governance costs in here. These are things like auditors' fees, examiners' fees, not fees that are paid to other people to help manage the charity. For example, you might pay an auditor a fee to do accountancy work. That wouldn't be governance costs. That would go into the headings up here. So be very careful about what you actually put into governance costs. Other expenditure and expenditure which requires allocation to other activities, which is done in one of the steps in the step process. These are all the headings of overheads that most organisations will incur. A charity will incur them in the same way. You enter the information in there. So it's quite important, as you'll see, to understand the categories that are in this trial balance. Expenditure on charitable activities is quite different from the overheads, support costs, which go in there. Then at the end of this part of the trial balance, you will have the net surplus or deficit for the year. In the balance sheet section of the trial balance, you will add the figures that are disclosed here, additions to fixed assets. Some of these figures are balancing figures to entries that you've already made in the income section of the trial balance, or are balancing figures to the prior year figures. So, for example, the prior figure for heritage assets was 2,000. That would be carried forward into this year as 2,000. So you only enter data into the blue cells. And you've got all the categories of assets and funds there. Our trial balance at the moment doesn't balance by £2,000 because we haven't put in all the entries that are required to balance it. Let's say we have cash at bank of £2,000. Then the current year balances. We've still got to enter something to balance last year's. So that is the trial balance. You will find that there are links throughout the trial balance to other areas, other steps where you take steps to correct an analysis or give more detail, return to the home, the step summary, and so on. Return to an analysis of other expenditure. If you're familiar with ordinary VT preparing a set of company accounts, the VT trial balance is much simpler because it hasn't got to be broken down into the categories that are required for charities. But the principle is exactly the same. You come to this template with the trial balance, with all the supporting figures, and you enter them in manually into this trial balance. That is